Welcome to Don't Give Up on Testicular Cancer, a podcast where testicular cancer survivors, caregivers, and others who have navigated the cancer journey share their stories. The podcast comes to you from the Max Mallory Foundation, a nonprofit family foundation focused on educating about testicular cancer in honor and in memory of Max Mallory, who died in 2016 at the young age of 22 from testicular cancer. Had he survived, Max wanted to help young adults with cancer. This podcast helps meet that goal. Here now is your host, Joyce Lofstrom, Max's mom and a young adult cancer survivor.
Hi, this is Joyce, and with me today is Andrew Barrow, and we're here to talk about his testicular cancer journey and also some of his accomplishments and plans for Movember. So, Andrew, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So, why don't we just start and tell us a little bit about yourself and your business? It's very impressive, and I think our listeners would really like to hear more about that.
I run a digital ad agency that effectively helps anyone grow their business. There's quite a few different ad agencies out there. What makes us a little bit special is that we actually don't charge our clients. So in the course of history, and I've been doing this job for a very long time. I actually programmed my first website when I was 12 years old and integrated early AdSense technology, which is like a very early version of Google Ads, into my website to help pay for a Nintendo 64. Because I was a little kid at the time, I really wanted it. I had done that. And fast forward many years, I've been working for all the major ad agencies you can imagine and started this. The way most of advertising works is that anytime you're buying ad spots through an agency, is that typically in the modern era, there's this thing called programmatic, and that sits on top of nearly all digital advertising. And what they do is they use those channels and the ad technology to ultimately buy different placements and what have you. One problem to that is that those guys charge quite a bit. So each one takes a cut of the overall budget until it ultimately gets to the website, the publisher who's actually publishing the content. So what we realized is that there's a much easier way of having a conversation about scaling up operations if we charge them. We're bringing them the business. Why don't we charge them for bringing the business and not charge our clients? And that's what we do. Okay. So we don't charge our clients for managing the budget that they give us. And we only make a percentage of somebody else's percentage. And we do that, effectively what we call is the tax. We tax all the different ad tech players. And then we also work with a lot of other agencies where we'll buy it on their behalf and act as a white label. And for those players, we actually pay them 50% of our gross revenue. And that's basically it.
And I wanted to start with that just because it's a really timely topic. And, you kept doing it, I think, through your testicular cancer story. So let's segue to that and tell us whatever you want to share about your story with testicular cancer.
Well, so testicular cancer doesn't run in my family. Cancer runs in my family, specifically lymphoma, melanoma has taken it took my grandmother's life, and it's prevalent. But testicular cancer never ran into it, and nor did prostate or anything like that. So I happened to, as a kid, this is how I figured it out, is I used to watch Tom Green of MTV, and he had a segment in which he had discovered he had testicular cancer, and he went through the entire procedure or not live, but like unedited, and he walked everyone through that. And I was absolutely fascinated by it because I had never heard of testicular cancer before when I saw it. I was younger, I was probably in middle school at the time, and I was blown away by this. And he had this line, because Tom Green's very vulgar, he had this song that got stuck in my head, which was effectively the main hook of the song is check your balls, kids, check them every day. And I did. I literally was so scared by that moment that I did. And I was always very cognizant, and I just did the routine every day for my entire life thinking this is like a funny homage to like my childhood, but this is never going to happen to me. And then one day I found a lump and I thought, okay, maybe this is like a cyst or something else. And it didn't make a lot of sense to me, but it was oddly located, I thought, on my testicle, and I couldn't figure it out. So it's like, okay, it's probably not cancer. It's probably a cyst, but I should check it out to be safe. So I went to my doctor and she said you should probably get an ultrasound, but yeah, you're probably right. It's a cyst. I think she was saying that, not the. So I was getting an ultrasound and the tech had the worst poker face in the history of man. She basically was like, as she was going over that area, she was just chatting me up about actually something I did my dissertation on in college. And she was just like, oh, that's absolutely fascinating. Yeah, yeah. I was just like, okay, something seriously is wrong.
Oh boy.
And so I immediately made right after that, she's like, I'll see if there's a doctor here, but we should probably get you in right away with a urologist or some sort of urology doctor. But she wouldn't tell me what it was. So I was like, well, maybe I'm being paranoid here. Like
Yeah.
maybe I'm being crazy. But they said, see a urologist. I was like, okay, I'll go see a urologist. And I went to go see my urologist, Dr. Kim, who's at Cedars-Sinai and in Los Angeles. And he told me, like, and it was one of the more bizarre experiences of my life, only because, you watch it on TV, and I've been in entertainment for a really long time. And so I always saw the scenes. It's supposed to be raining or at least cloudy out, and you're supposed to go, and I'm supposed to not hear anything for a second. There's supposed to be this high-pitched noise, and then I come back to reality and I deal with things. That happened in Breaking Bad. That happened in every other movie where the main character gets cancer. And I walked in, and Dr. Kim he's the head of urology at Cedars-Sinai, really insanely talented doctor, but also his bedside manner is a little funny. Because I walked in and he's like, why don't you sit down? It's like, okay. He's like, do you know why you're here? I was like, no. He's like, well, you have cancer.
Oh gosh. Oh man.
I was like, okay.
One,
Like,
two,
that's what
three.
you told me. Just rip the Band-Aid off. I think that there's some semblance to that. And then there was somewhat of a little bit of a humorous back and forth. And then from that, he had mentioned, he's like, we need to remove your right testicle. And I was like, seems insane. He's like, we have to do it right away. And he took me through everything. He's like, it can be very aggressive. We do not know if it is or not. It's not something you just want to wait and see how it progresses. And I was like, but wouldn't you want to do a biopsy? Do you want to do this, that, the other thing? And he's like, no. In all these scenarios, like the risk of biopsy and then it becoming like stage 4 and it's metastasizing is so high. And it's like a 99% chance that is cancer, that we just removed the testicle. He's like, that's what we recommend doing. So I was like, can you get a second opinion? And I went down the hallway to another urologist, and he's like, yep, that's what we do. And so I was like, that was like a Thursday. He's like, well, we're going to remove it on Monday. And I was just like, okay, there's no time to process. And I remember it very, very vividly. I had gone in and they were going to knock me out. I wasn't scared necessarily about that. I was worried that there might be a chance that it's not testicular cancer, that it was some other cancer that had metastasized and gotten to my testicle, because there was a small chance of that based on the positioning, and they explained it, but they said that's very unlikely, but just in case.
Right.
And I didn't share that with anybody because I was like, I don't want to scare my family. And it turned out that wasn't. I was
Right.
fine. It was only stage 2. And it was definitely testicular cancer, but they knocked me out, and I woke up and they had removed my right testicle. Then, I was actually very stressed during it because I was thinking I could wake up and it's like, sorry, like, you have time or whatever. And there was a million things running through my head. And I just remember waking up and getting up, and then eventually they make you go to the bathroom, and then to make sure everything is still working. And then he started walking me through things. Now, what I didn't know at the same time is I have quite a few tattoos on my back. My mom knew I had a very small tattoo, but I had actually grown that piece quite a bit. And my sister was waiting for a call to hear how things went. And my mom saw my wife was standing there, and she was with our at the time, 1 year old. And she's like, what's the likelihood? And I stood up and my gown was completely open. And the nurse was like, oh my God, she covered my butt. And then as I was walking away, she's just like, my, my wife was like, what's the likelihood that Andrew's mom is going to walk in right now and see this gigantic tattoo? And all she heard was, oh my God, I can't believe you got a tattoo or more tattoos. And so my mom called my sister crying,
Oh
and my sister was
no.
waiting to hear how the cancer went. So she thought something went wrong.
It
And
was
she
the
was just like,
tattoos.
Andrew got a tattoo. And my sister like, what about the cancer? She's like, oh no, he's fine. It was like, it's a tattoo.
I understand that, but yes. So, okay. And then what?
My urologist walked in and he explained, he's like, he's like, we need to walk you through a few things. One of the things that was interesting was he had said that one thing, which was really unique, because my wife and I were trying to have our second at the time. And obviously it wasn't going well because one was
Right.
cancer. But my doctor had explained to me that you pretty much, once I clear you, you probably will get pregnant. Like that's just how it is, because one side overproduces for the other side when it's missing and you become insanely fertile. He's like, because if you weren't, I was actually going to recommend you just should be abstinent for at least 6 months,
Okay.
because otherwise you high chance of impregnation even with the pill. And sure enough, once we started trying again, I got my other son out of it.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, and it was like pretty much almost immediate. But the craziest thing is that during this entire time, I was actually unemployed. And then I had gotten a job and and I don't want to mention the company because actually the company was really great. It's just this one very strange incident happened to me is we had sat down and like everything went really well. And then I got this job and I was like, great. And then they couldn't hire me for 2 months. So during this entire time is when I found out I had cancer, got the treatment, and found out that I was cancer free and that it had only gotten to stage 2, but they didn't have to remove any lymph nodes or anything like that. And I immediately started the job. And then I had mentioned the story about what happened. And I had actually gotten flagged by my boss and brought in, and I was about to be terminated because I shared the story. Because I shared the story that was like this, and he said that that's inappropriate for a workplace to share that story. And I was like, but it's
About your
testicular
cancer? No, really?
cancer. And he was like,
Okay.
yeah, but you can't say that you did a self-examination. It's like, I wasn't pleasuring myself. I literally was doing a self-examination, which you're supposed to do.
Yes, yes.
And it
Oh,
turned
Andrew.
into
Oh,
a little bit of a thing. That company ended up being incredibly kind and they like about a
right.
million other things. But there was that the only time I've ever had anything lobbed against me in that kind of environment was that one time, and I felt very thrown off. But I was like, well, I'm not backing down. And they're like, all right. And so my wife and I raised quite a bit of money from the Movember Foundation, which, if people don't know, is a foundation to help focus on men's health, specifically mental health, testicular cancer, and prostate cancer. And I think because of a few things, sometimes people diminish testicular cancer, where it's just like, well, yeah, but like it's still cancer. It's not
Yeah.
like it's like, oh, hey, it's a bee sting. But we raised quite a bit of money, and then fast forward to this year, and I've always tried to work with the Movember Foundation. And sure enough, this year we had chats. I talked with UN, who's the agency of record for them, and they're like, why don't we figure out a way of working together? You happen to know the community pretty well, and we're running their campaign right now for them. So if anyone is interested in joining, please do sign up to be someone who joins the Movember movement and grow a mustache for November.
That's wonderful. Wow. Well, I'm kind of surprised about that incident, but okay, so you got around that. Tell me a little bit more now about what you've been doing for Movember, just in general.
So we place the ads for Movember. We're trying to advocate for them across every single social media channel. We're trying to help them by trying to spread the message as far as we can on every channel, focusing in on those who could not just donate, which is great, but really those who are looking to raise funds, because getting direct donation is great.
Yeah.
But getting people to raise funds has a compounding effect, which is not only does it raise funds, but it also raises awareness, which I think is, especially in a modern climate where news cycles 24/7 and kind of absorbs everybody into it, it's hard to realize that there's still people trying to make a difference out there, especially people like the Movember Foundation. And so I would just encourage anyone who is interested to grow a mustache.
So I wanted to ask you with your cancer diagnosis, so you didn't have to do chemo or any kind of follow-up then?
No. So they had literally gotten it down to the wire. So they had said that if I had done it the following day, there most likely would have had to do chemo.
Oh my, wow.
Because basically it had spread a little bit out to the rest of the region. They were able to get whatever tissue that they found had cancer, because it was literally like approaching the lymph nodes. Like it was like within several millimeters to the lymph nodes. So they didn't even have to remove the lymph nodes, which is great. But that is how down to the wire it was. It was surprising, because I thought that, they had said it was very quick. And I think that's something that's not really well known, is that it's once you find the tumor, it's not like it's a lot of other cancers. I think a lot of other cancers, there's this thing called the doubling rate. And there's a handful of cancers that are just as quick as testicular, but testicular because not a lot of people talk about it, but also because there is some perception that the likelihood of survival is high, that a lot of people think they have time. And the reality is you don't. It's really, really quick because of the blood vessels. It can get anywhere in your body super fast. So they effectively were telling me that I don't know how much validity to this there is versus them just trying to get me to get it done right away. But they were saying that, the doubling rate is one of the fastest rates within all cancers. And it's just, you need to deal with it the moment you discover it. Otherwise, you can lead to very quickly to stage 3, stage 4. And then it's not something to be taken lightly, even though the reality is you're going to remove a testicle, which can be terrifying for a male. It's either that or death. And it's one of those things that you have to really keep in mind, is that it's a weird moment, and it's something that you then have, there is some level of recovery from the surgery because they are scraping out some of your insides and they're also removing a testicle, but it has to be done.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that's important is how you learned about testicular cancer. And as a young person watching MTV and Tom Green and but I think that, that's where do people get their information? And, at whatever age you were, you saw that and remembered it. And I think that's important. You listen to him. I mean, as someone entertaining, and
I think it was entertaining, but it's those moments of, I have a moment to make an impact and to prevent other people from having it. Because he was just in stage, like barely into stage 3, where it spread to his lymph nodes. I think later they might have had to do chemo for him, but they definitely had to remove some lymph nodes, and they had to remove the testicle. I think that there is, it's kind of like the whatever it takes to get people aware and to be sure, it is what it is, especially things like, not just testicular cancer, but there's I think there's especially when it comes to men and our health, we have a tendency to ignore it until the last minute. And it's like, I got this cough, whatever. I get coughs, I'm just going to ignore it. Or at this pain, I'm just going to ignore it. And I think there's something to be said about, just even if you have to entertain them or make jokes about it, all that matters is that then is, even if you're not taking it seriously during a check, or you're going to the doctor because it seems like a gag, that's much better than sitting at home and just, it'll probably go away. And which is probably what kills most men. Is honestly that attitude.
Yeah, that's very true. And some of the men I've talked to that waited, most of them made it, but a couple didn't, that I talked to their caregivers. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So tell me, we have Movember, your incredible business that you're doing. What's next for you as you look ahead in personal life, business, Movember, anything you want to share?
The biggest thing that I am working on right now, just from a business standpoint, is I work heavily within AI space. Technically, Revenue Arc is two companies. So there's Revenue Arc Marketing, which is what I run. There's Revenue Arc Development, which is what my brother runs. And they just focus on AI development and all that stuff. I think it's us trying to change a lot within advertising so that there's a little bit more transparency. Advertising notoriously the transparency has been very limited. And so what we want to do is we want to help evangelize and help more small niche agencies grow. And so our biggest focus pretty much for the next 2-3 years is going to be trying to help all these brand new agencies that are starting to pop up in the advent of AI to help them along and make sure that they are set up for success when it comes to helping out their clients. And that's part of this, like, we're effectively paying you. So that's from a business standpoint. And then from a personal standpoint, I have 2 little youngsters who keep me quite busy, but we have something that I came to the realization right after is, although I am still a fairly frugal person, I have gotten a lot less frugal when it comes to especially taking vacation and a holiday. I think we ourselves get too tied up into there's always time. And I think that's something that this taught me is that's not even close to true. And even if there is, you could end up in a situation. I was talking to a friend and their parent had worked their tail off their entire life. It was very healthy, did everything right. And ultimately all they really wanted was to get a Jag. That was their big thing. They wanted to get a Jaguar car. Okay. That was like the pinnacle of achievement, because they had come as immigrants to the country and they were just working hard, and that's what they really wanted. They put their kids through college. They always put themselves second. And within a week, they eventually did get that Jag when they retired. And within a week, they weren't allowed to drive anymore because of a health diagnosis that with their vision, they were literally banned. No. So that idea of like, well, there's always time is complete nonsense. Not only is there not always time, but even if there is, you never know how it can be taken away from you. And so, I've seen so many of my friends, parents and a couple of friends die from cancer over the years, that it just is like, you have to take care of yourself and live in the moment, not to the point that you're like reckless, but the whole idea of like, I'm just going to save every single penny for a future is saving money for a future not guaranteed. Right. So take the time now.
That's a good lesson. I just had an experience with a girlfriend that same thing, something in her health changed, and everything she thought would happen isn't going to happen. And I'll just say I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, where I grew up for my high school reunion. So I'm taking the time to, enjoy that too. So you're right. Yeah. I think that's a great message. So my last question is, what song, when you hear it, do you have to sing along?
So I have little kids. So in reality, it's anything Lippy related has now not that I want to sing along. It's more of like, it's like an instinct to sing along, whether or not that's fire truck or police car. But I would say that, or actually, as weird as it is, and this is kind of odd given that I am barely 40, is Jefferson Airplane, White Rabbit. For some reason, wow. I have to sing that like the moment it comes on. If it pops up on Spotify, I'm like, not that I grew up with it at all. It just, for some reason, is permanently stuck in my head. Yeah,
I grew up with it, and it's great. Grace Slick and the whole thing. It's, I can see that. So, So I just want to end with, can you, if you want to promote Movember or your agency, if you want to give us a URL or anything for people to find more information, please do.
Yeah, for Revenue Arc, which is my agency, you can just go to www.revenuearc.com or revenuearcmarketing.com. Both URLs will take you to the same place. But for Movember, which I think is really the important one, is you can just go to movember.com, movember.us. Either one will work. And it will just sign up to grow your Mo.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And we're going to look for more on Movember and your work. So thanks.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thank you for watching this episode of Don't Give Up on Testicular Cancer. If you enjoyed this podcast, please Subscribe to our program on your favorite podcast directory. You can also visit the Max Mallory Foundation at www.maxmalloryfoundation.com/podcast to listen to previous podcast episodes or donate to the foundation. Join us again next time for another episode of Don't Give Up on Testicular Cancer.